It's time to be honest about Kendrick Lamar.
He's one of the greatest artists. I'll give you that. But everybody be acting like Kendrick is really that nice when it comes to like getting that. I ain't seen Kendrick in one fight yet. Y'all can say Drake lost a battle, but I seen one 3 others. When Kendrick gonna hop in the ring? It took you 5 years to make a song with Baby Keem talking about I'm smoking on your top 5. Nobody remembers any other line you said except I'm smoking on your top 5. Are you done? Kendrick, I'll tell you this because I really believe this. You not in Drake's league. You in the league of Wale, J. Cole, and them.
Anticipation is a difficult thing to master. And when something's been built up in the hearts and minds of the culture over a number of years, the prospect of actually living up to it is never easy. For starters, when we're left in the dark, humans have a tendency to let their imaginations go wild. So when an artist we genuinely love doesn't release music for a long period of time, our brains can't help but develop wild expectations of what their album could sound like. And when it finally does emerge, anything less than a classic can be hard to accept. Next up, there's the fact that we're all susceptible to the label marketing machine. The hype that they can curate around any project can mean that at first, it can be hard to truly gauge the quality of a project. Finally, whether negative or positive, sites like Twitter, IG, and YouTube means that our own snap judgments on a record can be reinforced and cemented way before we've really given an album a chance to be digested. And one album that definitely encountered each of these scenarios is Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Released in May of this year, the album was momentous for several reasons. Not only was it his first album in 5 years, it was also the last record that he'll release on the label he's called home since the beginning of his career. Coupled with a mysterious marketing campaign and the shockwaves he sent out to the world with The Heart Part 5, meant that it's no exaggeration to say that K-Dot's album was one of the highlights of the year. But it's also been one of the most polarizing. Torn between those who thought it was a classic and others who felt it was more of a case of Mr. Morale and the Mid-Steppers, Kendrick's long-awaited 5th album has been one of the most divisive projects in years. With no sign of a universal opinion in sight, it seems only logical to look at what Mr. Morale accomplished, and perhaps more pressingly, what it didn't, now that the hype has died down. To begin with, we have the album's general tone, and if it fulfilled our expectations. Considering that he'd been gone for half a decade, there was a feeling that when he did return, he'd shift hip-hop. The first inkling of anything that we'd had from Kendrick since the Black Panther soundtrack was his feature on Baby Keem's Family Ties, which saw him admit that one of his favorite pastimes was smoking on your top 5, while saying he didn't want to be addressed unless it was with 4 letters, the G-O-A-T. Teamed with the fact that
The GOAT, you know.
he'd been away for so long, fans had no reason to believe that when he did return, he'd be gunning for the top spot. And if that's what you expected, it's understandable that such an inwardly facing project would be disappointing. The thing is, rather than coming back to unmercifully trample the competition, Kendrick opted to focus on himself and his own shortcomings. From Worldwide Stepper's reflection on his infidelity and the paternal strife of Father Time, to examining generational trauma on Mother I Sober, Mr. Morale was the most densely packed project in K-Dot's entire discography. However, it was also one that was broadly detached from the world around him in order to focus on the one that exists inside his own mind. On this project, there's no bravado or sneak disses, with the only reference to cultural events coming from Kanye and Drake's strange reconciliation, which made him think that he had some healing to do. That's it. And rather than getting anthems like Humble or Alright, listening to Mr. Morale made us inhabit Kendrick's pain-blemished headspace, and as a result, some of us felt shortchanged. A lot of us felt shortchanged. But from Kendrick's standpoint, this was a conscious decision to step out of that world. Across the project, he purposefully abstained from boastful claims to focus on exuding his innermost thoughts and feelings. And where he once aimed to be recognized and given his flowers, Kendrick has been intent on dropping that side of himself. In a recent interview, Kendrick told Citizen magazine that his mindset from the days of the Control verse is dead, saying that, now I'm dropping the ego. I want to take the greatest off it. I want to give people something they can hold on to. So whether it touches 100 million people or one, I want to be that person. While the idea of creating music without trying to engage with as many people as possible would be alien to most mainstream rappers, Kendrick's album proves he wasn't aiming for the masses, and instead hoped that the record would resonate with those whose souls unconsciously cried out for it. And unsurprisingly, this has had a knock-on effect for the next important means of evaluating the album, chart performance. Although the record debuted at number 1 with over 295,000 sales first week, this metric hasn't exactly been kind to him, and in some ways, it speaks to the album's longevity. For example, his Good Kid, Mad City album is now outselling Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers on the charts, despite being released over a decade ago. Left without a big radio.
And the only song I like of that album was Swimming Pool. I'm gonna say that that's the only song that I like, that I ever liked of Kendrick Lamar. Other than that, his other shits is dirt. I ain't gonna lie. And I know and I said this mad times, bro. I was never a Kendrick Lamar fan, bro.
The single, Mr. Morale's more esoteric approach meant that it was never going to be a chart-topping album, and only 4 of the tracks even reached the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Due to its lack of replay value, some people naturally came down hard on him, and even suggested that the album was released as a contractual obligation to fulfill his label deal.
I'm gonna be honest with you though, Kendrick Lamar dropped a forgettable album. I understand the album was therapy, but it was forgettable. I hate to judge someone's art because of that, because I do think he was rapping really well on it. I think there was purpose on it. Most of what he said and how he did it was of a skilled and top tier MC, but Jesus Christ. We do have to talk about these intangibles. If your impact after not dropping for 5 years is dropping a project that people forget about in 2 weeks, I think that's a problem. It just leads me to believe that...
Damn, Kendrick haven't drop an album in 5 years? That's crazy.
Kendrick is doing this because his last project on TD, he negotiated about for 2 years to get off TD. So everybody think that he's like in a studio for 5 years working. No, doing a lot of business. It's very possible that this album is just mailed in.
When you consider the actual context of the album, this theory falls flat, as no one would purposefully bare their soul and their own insecurities just to get out of a deal. The last time around, Damn's lead single, Humble, and its trap sound meant that he had one of the biggest selling tracks of the year. But there was clearly no intention of replicating that, and in Instagram posts that coincided with Mr. Morale's release, Kendrick acknowledged that his willingness to experiment makes him an ill-fitting anomaly within the commercial space. I'll never forget the process of falling in love with imperfection, the piano, my fans, the stories of reconciliation I hear, from penitentiaries to small villages. Some words will find you today, some will find you in 10, find your children type. Sitting in a corner like an old book, he continued. I'm forever underground, infiltrating the mainstream a la carte. While it could be argued that he simply had no intention of making commercial music, it could be argued that he got that out of his system due to the key role that he played in Baby Keem's The Melodic Blue. Considering that Keem is his little cousin, it was no surprise when numerous reference tracks for Keem were leaked online. Me and Doc created 4 new languages, bro. Keem said about his creative process during the making of the record. Rap was getting boring, so we started to make new languages. Seemingly left unmoved by his peers, it seems that one of the defining characteristics of Mr. Morale is its ambition. And in hindsight, we really should have seen it coming. Kendrick's Pulitzer Prize win should have been an indication that Kendrick was no longer occupying the same field as other artists. As while Damn was more digestible on a sonic level, it was no less steeped in highly conceptual ideas and thematic baggage. The only difference is that while he gave his devout fans just as much to sink their teeth into, he made more tracks for casual listeners. This time around, Kendrick clearly didn't care how it'd be received, as long as he was able to deliver his conceptually motivated, artistic statement. But unsurprisingly, this single-mindedness aggravated some who were looking for straight bangers from Kendrick.
It's the type of album that like a Prince or even like a David Bowie, they make for themselves, just only play for friends and family, just experiment. But it's not really for musical consumption, there's no earworms. Could you argue that is what art is? It's the artist saying what they want to say, how they want to say it to themselves.
Said with a sense of entitlement to be entertained on his terms, Trent Clark's allusions to Prince or David Bowie really don't hold up, as whether audiences liked it or not, they routinely put out their most brazen ideas to the world, regardless of what their fans thought. So, it's only fitting that Kendrick has a challenging album in his discography, just like a Bowie or a Prince. As simply, he won't dilute his art for anyone in order to just sell records. Instead, it'll resonate with those who it resonates with.
Never play to the gallery, but you never learn that until much later on, I think. Never work for other people. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself. I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that. The other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area.
And while fans today are used to rappers satisfying them by giving them exactly what they want, it's never been what it's about for Kenny. In line with Bowie's view, Kendrick believes that making a record that was intended to vie for the same criteria that Drake applies to his work would be to sell himself short for commercial gain. In doing so, he'd be extorting his audience by giving something that he didn't feel like he had to elicit to the world, but something that was simply to garner the highest degree of mass appeal. Instead, Mr. Morale is the sound of Kendrick occupying his own self-governed headspace. And rather than being contained to its runtime, the tour to support the project has enabled fans to become immersed in its concept. Songs from Mr. Morale that on the album seemed unfocused, with overcomplicated beats and flow switches, are tightened up with brutal economy for the arena, said The Guardian in the review of the show. We get key bars, verses, and hooks from songs such as Grueling Relationship Drama, We Cry Together, or Purple Hearts, reducing the material to the best, most efficient version of itself. Described by some viewers as the greatest show in hip-hop history, it's safe to say that this record has been as, if not more important than Kendrick's previous albums. And while he can't please everybody, it seems like most of the people who hold a real disdain for the album have misinterpreted the aim of the project.
It's not going to be for everybody. And I understand when artists take time and putting their together and you get this type of product, this is the result you get. I like quality. I'm a quality type of Kendrick has now delivered quality to all of us. How do you take it? It's up to you.
A record which producer Static Selecta said was going to inspire kids to be creative. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is a challenging project by design. So, whatever your thoughts on the project, one thing that we can all agree on is that the argument of irrelevance can be stopped dead in its tracks. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers may be polarizing, but just like To Pimp a Butterfly, the record stirs strong emotions in the listener. Whether positive or negative in nature, the fact that the discourse rages on only emphasizes that even if it's not staying in your rotation, to the culture at large, the record was vital.
That's the vid. So yeah, let me know what y'all think about Kendrick Lamar. Do y'all think this is it for Kendrick Lamar? Like, if comment down below, and if y'all are fans of Kendrick Lamar, please let me know what's y'all favorite song of him, bro. Like, what is y'all favorite song? I want to know. So yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the vibes. Or just checking out you are.